In essence, what is the cloud good for? Is it just about saving money?
It's good for magazines because a lot of people are writing about it. And my old college professor once said this anecdote where he said, well, he was talking about innovation, and he said, whenever there's a new idea, there's four peas in a pot, which are the stages of that innovation. The first one is problem. So somebody has a problem. And then the second one is ponder. He starts to ponder about the problem and think, well, maybe this is a solution. The third one is publish. He starts writing articles about it and saying, well, I got this cool idea and isn't it great, and why aren't we all doing that? That's exactly where we are today with the cloud. Everyone is writing about it, and the fourth P is pilot. And funnily enough, after the fourth P, about 80% of the ideas you never see back. Because they piloted it, didn't really work, didn't work out, and it fades away. And with cloud, we got a good expectation that it won't fade away, that it will work. But that's also because we're already in kind of a new iteration of cloud. Remember when we called it utility computing? To a large extent the same idea, but just the technology wasn't ready, the bandwidth wasn't there, the machines weren't fast enough. Now we're there, now we call it cloud. I think it will reach the end mark. But maybe by that time it will have a new name, because we tend to change names a lot in IT. And as such, I think it will get there. I think that cloud will eventually become the, let's say, paradigm which people will use.
Regardless of what word we use, whether we're using cloud computing as a metaphor for some new paradigm, whatever we want to say, what does all this mean for IT professionals in user organizations and companies and organizations? What will their future look like in a cloud world?
Okay, well, it's a little bit of back to the future, I think. When I started in IT, and I won't tell you how long that was ago, but it's been a while by now. If you wanted to know what a company did, the best person to talk to would be the IT manager, because he knew exactly what his company, what the critical success factors were, where they were good at, where they were bad at, what they did, what was really important, what was non-negotiable, because he worked with all these departments. Very often then at night he went back and wrote the code in his 4GL system to build the systems that did that, the applications that did that, and he really knew his company. Nowadays, what you see a lot more, and that's to some extent that's because of the complexity of the technology, is that the IT people, they know a lot about three-tier architectures and about client-server and about web standards and about backups and data warehousing and all that stuff, but very often they're not as in tune anymore with what the company does. Now, I think that will go away, and that basically means that there will be two types of IT people. There will be the people who are really into the bits and the bytes and want to do technical cool stuff. They will probably work for vendors, and the good news of the cloud era is there will be a lot of vendors. If you don't say, well, bits and bytes and tweaking stuff is my destiny, then you will be an IT person in an end user company. Could be a government, could be a manufacturing company, could be any kind of company, and your role will be that you know of both sides. You know a lot about the company, a lot more than I think nowadays a lot of IT people do, and maybe with some exceptions of CIOs who don't know that much about technology anymore, which is interesting because they might be the front runner there. And you also know technology. And because you know both, you can match them. And then there's one skill that IT people have more than other people, and that's structured thinking. They can look at a pattern and say, hey, I see a structure. If we do this and this and this and we combine that, then we have a solution. And it's that skill that if you bring that into the user department, also physically, let's take the IT people, have them sit inside the marketing department, inside the sales department, inside the R&D department, no longer in the basement next to the machines. And by doing that, you get a lot of creativity, structured thinking, innovation back into your organization, and it's a much better use of IT brain power than provisioning 1,000 servers overnight, because that more and more will be automated.
Gregor, is there anything else that you want to put across about this new horizon?
Yeah, I think we have an analogy for the IT department of the future, and we say that IT needs to go from managing a factory to managing a supply chain, and it's based on an analogy with the car industry. Traditionally, cars were made on an assembly line, think of T-Fords, and they made them really, really cheap as long as they were really, really standard. And the same model would run for tens of years, think of the black T-Ford. And at a certain moment, people said, yeah, it's really cheap, but I don't like it. I want a blue car, I want a red car, I want a hybrid car, I want a cabrio, I want a Land Cruiser, I want this, I want that. So they wanted lots and lots of different things. And the car industry had to reinvent itself from being really efficient at making the same thing over and over to introducing new models really, really fast. And the way they did that was by using the supply chain. They no longer make their own anti-braking system, they don't make their own transmissions, they don't make their own this, they don't make their own that, they bring it all together. And that's the analogy with the cloud, where the modern IT department, they don't need to run and build all that, they just need to know it's available and then orchestrate it together as part of that supply chain. And every time I say car, and you think of application, then that works quite nicely. Because cars used to run for like 8 years as a model. Applications now run for maybe 8-10 years as an application. We already know that now cars, every 2-3 years, there's a new model. There might be a refresh in between, but then there's a brand new model. And IT needs to get used to the idea that also applications might change or be completely revamped or no longer used in 2-3 years. So now everyone is on about social media and everyone is building in-house Twitter systems, etc. I'm not sure that we will have those in 10 years. I'm almost convinced that in 5 years there will be something else. And that is what you need to get ready for as an IT department.
Gregor Petri from Computer Associates, thank you very much indeed.